everybody, welcome to Tuner Talk. Tonight we're going to talk about a topic that's been kind of covered, but I think we got our own input on it as far as that goes. So manual transmissions versus automatic transmissions, paddle shift transmissions.
All flavors of automatic.
All flavors of slush box.
Yeah.
No third pedal, no manual.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
I don't care if your automatic has a clutch in it. If I don't actuate it with this plug, it's an automatic.
Well, all right, so for starters, is most manufacturers will tell you that the biggest thing, the reason that these cars are converting to that is
Costs.
to sell more cars, because less and less people know how to drive manual.
Yeah.
And if you build an automatic, anyone can drive it. If you build a manual, you're narrowing your market, and nobody wants to do that. Now, the first car that comes to mind for me in the transition to this whole fast cars with automatics thing is the GTR. It was a car grandma can go to the grocery store and run 10s on the way.
I was actually really disappointed when the newest GTR wasn't even an option. It wasn't an option for manual. Because I thought, like, I come from that same, like Gran Turismo generation, so, like, I was like, oh my god, there's a new GTR. I thought, I'll buy that before I buy a 911. Like, I'll buy that and then I'll buy a 911. But then it didn't have a manual. And
Yeah,
I was like,
that's a very good point that you made about the GTR being the starting point. Because I'm thinking back about what rivaled the GTR back in 2008. You had, like, the Ferrari F430. Actually, that had a manual. You had the Gallardo, that had a manual. You had the 911 Turbo, that also had a manual.
Oh, it was the first year for the R8, which had a manual.
The R8 also had a
every car you
manual.
mentioned is dramatically more expensive and has
What
I think is more elaborate gearbox than the GTR.
Yeah. So the GTR was always cheaper than its competitors, which is that's kind of hard to say. But everything else did have a manual option. Although when you look back on everything we just mentioned now, and how valuable they are now versus what an 08 GTR is now worth.
What are they worth? I have never looked into them.
Well, 430 manuals are probably worth $50,000 more than an F1 430. Gallardos with a manual, they range, but they're definitely going to hold their value better than automatic ones.
Oh, for sure.
R8s are eventually going to do the same.
Yeah.
Their price delta is not that bad now, but it will be.
I think that's because the people who bought the automatic Gallardos and R8s and so on at the time were the guys who just wanted to have a Lamborghini or Ferrari.
And that was even back then, that was still the faster option that they could drive every day.
Yeah.
And now you look at the dual clutches that's in, like, the Huracan, and it makes that look so old and outdated. And people are thinking that that's not going to happen today because dual clutches are so fast. It will still happen. We're going to look back on these awesome dual clutches now, and in 10 years we're going to realize, oh my god, they were so slow.
Where'd they go?
Took 3 milliseconds to change. Oh my goodness! Now they only take.
To read a book in between
But
shifts.
here's the thing: automatic transmissions have been around a long time. It's not a technological breakthrough. Dual clutch or PDK, or a lot of that other stuff is just a more advanced version of the same thing.
More or less, yeah.
So I mean, it's about drivability for the average person to just get in the car. And I think in America you got that whole, I gotta eat my Big Mac and slurp my Coke while I'm driving my car, so God forbid I should have to shift, kind of thing. Which is why a lot of fast cars don't have cup holders.
Yeah, and then there's a certain sect of the automotive world that thinks that your car is not a real, like, man's car or just performance car in general unless it has 3 pedals. We have these amazing cars. Is a McLaren any less of an impressive object because it doesn't have a third pedal?
Yeah.
Yes, it is!
Absolutely not.
So I've driven the 570 quite a bit, and I'll tell you, that's the car that kind of changed my mind on it. I've driven Porsches and PDKs and stuff like that, and you can't beat the gear change in a PDK is insane. But
or a McLaren or Ferrari dual
But a
clutch.
McLaren is like, you know what? I think the thing that most people don't hit on when they say flappy paddle is forget the paddles altogether. If the car is like a McLaren, you put it in sport mode and you hold the wheel and you drive the car fast. At the speeds you can attain in that short period of time, I think you kind of want to have both hands.
Changing it like this would be very difficult.
This is, you haven't hit on it, but I can tell you exactly why what you said is true. Because that car was designed with that transmission
Sure.
in mind.
Yeah, it wasn't a car they put in on.
Correct. It wasn't an option, and because the car was designed to work as well as it could with that transmission, it just belongs there.
Sure.
And that's the
But
difference.
the other argument is that shifting a car destabilizes the car. That
Yeah,
if it does it
it
by
unloads,
itself,
yeah.
your attention is where it needs to be on the road and all this other. And I think it's, yeah, but the whole point is, there's a reason you still, like Fox chassis Mustangs still sell and you can't find one.
Do you know what they're
Because
worth now? It's
I know.
ridiculous.
It's like 10 grand.
I found a rust box that was
Yeah.
10 grand. I'm like, are you
go,
joking?
Go try to find an LX 5-liter notch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking
Yeah.
But the problem is, they're so easy to make them go fast in a drag
Yeah.
strip that everybody has bought them and everybody has crashed them and everyone's totaled them, and it's attrition.
for. And actually, the suspension geometry is
Horrible.
no. It's better thought out than I think even Ford realized at the time, because they lend themselves really well to road racing, really well to
Except
they
they have
sorts
a
of
really
racing.
hard time stopping.
Suspension, not brakes.
Drum brakes in the back.
suspension, not
Yeah,
brakes.
that's- yeah.
Suspension.
But like, so manual transmissions now you're seeing it go kind of the way of the dodo bird. I mean,
Yeah.
You're car companies like Porsche make a
Yeah.
big deal about saying we still make manuals.
Yeah.
Come to us. We're
For two
we're like
models.
this mountain on the sky. Yeah, it's the Porsche about it. And I get it, but it's like, isn't it kind of supposed to go away? Isn't it? Because I remember when
I think-
carburetors went to fuel injection and then 4
Well-
speed, 5 speed, 6 speeds, 8 speeds, 10 speed. I mean.
I think the
At what
difference.
point?
I think the difference between that particular argument and the manual automatic debate is that whether or not manufacturers intended for it to go this way, driving a car manually accidentally is really fun, and it makes you feel really
Yeah.
connected, and
Sure.
it makes you feel like the car won't do anything unless you make it do it.
Yeah.
Whereas with an automatic, you kind of feel like you're along for the ride a little bit, and there's
Well,
something
like-
inherently
Yeah, like,
different.
I would have missed that shift, but I'm glad I didn't.
Right.
Because
So one
you
of
know,
my friends always says, if it's not manual, you're just steering the car. You're not driving the
Right,
car.
right.
And-
I can tell you, the first time, sorry to cut you off.
I would love to put that friend in an automatic ZR1 with 755 horsepower
Well, ironically,
on the
now you just
racetrack.
bought a Cayenne Turbo, which is the epitome
Of driving yourself.
driving.
Yeah, it's easy
Yeah.
speed. So my question is, and I'll pose this to both of you to come up with, we've already discussed the 570 and maybe even the GTR. Come up with 3 cars that we don't think would be better with manuals today.
P1.
McLaren P1, that's a very
Absolutely.
easy example. I think that would be
Absolutely.
really scary with
And
a
here's where
manual.
Can't be
you make
manual.
enemies on the entire RCF form. My RCF would be horrible at the moment.
I don't think the RCF would be very. It would,
Because of the way the rev range is, it takes
Yeah.
all its power up high.
You'd lose too many revs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think. I mean, the NSX or BRZs or cars like that, you really got to squeeze the fun out.
the LFA would be not good
No.
with a manual.
Well, okay, but that's more to do with the engine than anything.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
And
we're
that's
saying.
really,
with the
that's
RCF
really a
as well.
Formula
It's-
One basically.
Yeah.
And I think the Kia Stinger is a really interesting one because the week that I reviewed that car, I had so many people come up to me to say, "Oh, it's really, really cool, 365 horsepower, twin turbo V6," and they said, "Oh, I'd really, buy one of these if I had a manual." And I say, A, no, you couldn't because you can't afford it. B, I don't think it would be any better if it had a manual. It's a big, comfortable car, like manual transmission.
Yeah, it would make it better.
I just don't.
Yeah. Well, that brings it to the point. Like, is it better? Like, is a manual? How is a manual? We're all those guys with like manual cars. If we could, we own you got
Yeah.
one. We all have manual cars. But is it really better, or are we just clinging to that?
There are certain
experience?
cars, so let's go the opposite way. Cars that are really. Let's not do cars that should come with a manual that don't. We can talk about that too, but let's just talk about cars that are sacrilegious to order without a manual. And I think the number one is the Miata.
Newer cars?
The Miata.
Absolutely.
If you order an automatic Miata, shame on you. If you
So
order,
does that by extension the Z4 or like
well,
similar
the-
car,
the-
similar class?
I think somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong.
It's like little roadsters, all roadsters.
Yeah, all the
like
little-
like an Alpha.
I think the lower the power output, the more
necessary.
applicable it is
Yeah, I agree.
for a manual transmission.
Like we both have a friend of ours who has an FRS that's got an auto.
Yeah.
Which is like to me the epitome of sacrifice. Even though
That's the most
I'll give it to
wasteful car
them.
ever
They
built.
really went out of their way to make the shifter look like it's a manual, so
Yeah.
you don't get called out. Like people go, "Oh, it looks like a manual."
They did,
It looks
yeah.
like it does looks like a manual.
The thing that I kind of, I don't know why, I give the FRS a little bit more of a pass than the Miata, because the Miata does just one thing, fun.
And the Miata has a heritage also.
Yeah, the FRS,
Albeit
I
not a
can,
long one.
the FRS, the 86 cars, I can give a little bit more of a pass because I can imagine like a teenage girl or like a guy with a family who like convinces his wife or girlfriend that it has a back seat
Yeah.
and it has a trunk.
Yeah.
So you can kind of
In
use
theory.
it for.
It's not a Corvette.
And
Like-
the thing that makes the BRZ the most fun for me is not the ringing because the Miata is more fun in my opinion to ring out because of its engine. I think the flat four
Yeah.
is kind of not that great of an
Well,
engine
the
anyway.
characteristics are different.
So I think the best part of the 86 is the steering, and that doesn't change if you get an automatic. So again, I would order a manual.
How much is it? How much is a new GT86 or whatever?
Ace, like 26 or
Yeah,
27.
you're getting close to 30.
So we'll call it 30.
Yeah.
If I had $30,000 to throw away at a car for fun, I wouldn't buy one of those.
On a new
But if I had to have a new car, I could.
for
It's hard to
30.
justify.
But
There's not a lot of good cars for 30.
Yeah.
So my take
Doesn't
on
get
the
you a
manual
lot.
thing is, if you have a car that you literally have to squeeze the fun out of,
Yeah.
like my NSX, or a Miata,
Yeah.
or a BRZ,
Or the Fiesta,
or,
Steve.
or yeah, it gets a little bit more powerful than most, but it's like you got to really push it.
Yeah.
And I think I think on a car that you would have to really push, an automatic just doesn't do it. I think because it makes a car that you're more aggressive driving a Miata at its limit. You're more aggressive at driving it. Like I've driven my friends have BRZs and FRSs. I've driven a bunch of it, and I always feel like I'm gonna get a speeding ticket in one because it's like you just got this. I'm gonna see how fast I get this. You're working the vehicle,
Yeah.
not holding on for dear life, which like in a Demon or something, or one of those cars that's like you would be afraid.
Those
I
would
wanna
be
take-
better with an automatic, and
Yeah,
that's why the Demon is automatic.
I think as soon
always.
as you're under 4 seconds, like 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, as soon as you're in that envelope, both hands on the wheel, looking at the windshield.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah, that's why
at
the
that point,
CR1
things
is a
happen
toughie and-
really fast.
So here's an interesting counterpoint, and I agree with you. But here's an interesting counterpoint. If you look at like old, like Dodge Challengers or Hemi Cudas, these are cars that, especially for the time, and even now to some extent, made a lot of power, but were definitely better with the manual.
Well, that's
Yeah.
because automatics were so terrible.
No,
You're-
absolutely not. You could put a brand new automatic in there
you
and
had
still
back in the
prefer the
60s.
manual.
You had like the
Sure,
two-speed
yeah,
power
but-
glide.
yeah,
No, that's
force
true. I'm not saying that's
feedbacks.
not true. I'm saying if you took that car, that exact car, and you put a brand new automatic in it, it would not be as fun as it would be with a manual.
But
I don't
it's
know,
also-
though. I've driven-
those cars you're talking about also were tanks.
They're also really
They're
hard
not
to
that
drive
heavy.
with their
They're
manuals.
not that heavy. They're much
how,
lighter
how,
than you
how
might
much
think.
is a Hemi Cuda weigh?
3,400 pounds.
That's light for today.
Yeah.
That would be, it's
Yeah.
a smell. What does a 911
Yeah.
weigh? Probably more than
Because
that.
there's no airbags or
Yeah, that gets back to
dash
what
of
it-
steel.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
Your
right.
crumple zone is you.
Yeah.
But I've driven like resto mods with like a modern LS engine and like a 6-speed automatic made into it.
That
It's,
would,
it's
that's,
just easier. It makes
that's
it-
actually kind of a good topic. We'll cover it at a later date. But like kit cars that aren't really kit cars. Like you get like Factory 5 is basically you'd have to argue
Or the
that one of the
Exocet.
best companies out there for building something that's really better than most kit cars have ever been.
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
the GTM, the one with the super powertrain, I forget
Yeah.
what it's called, but they're neat. But like it's not back in the day when everything had a Beetle under it.
Yeah.
But we'll
Or a
break
Fiero.
that down and cover it in another story. But as far as manuals go, it's like you feel like you're controlling the car more. I think you're in more control of the
I
car.
agree with that. I agree with that.
And I think that a quality manual
Yeah.
is, they're out there. but a quality, an automatic now, like a paddle shift car, they've taken all the misshifts and all the mistakes you can make out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I think at the end, I think what's the best thing in my mind about a manual is these modern cars make an amateur look good.
Okay.
And some people can't live with that fact, but
I have
you're less of a cool person because
I
your
think-
car is doing the work.
I think I can explain why that is. And you're right, and I think I can explain why that is. If you do something well, that you have taken time to hone your ability to
Right.
do well,
Like it's
you
harder to heel toe
feel
than most people think. Yeah.
you feel much better about getting to wherever that is than you do about going like this and just waiting. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you end up in the same place at the same time? Yes.
Yeah.
But do you feel more accomplished when you did it?
Yeah.
But
Versus
if
that's where I
you look
think
at it,
comes
like
from.
cars are basically, I'm not talking about SUVs and stuff, but intrinsically it's based on racing. So,
Yeah.
like, you still don't see autos in NASCAR,
No.
But you see them in Formula One.
but you see them in Formula One because that's the top of the food chain and that's where all the tech is.
Yeah.
But look at
It trickles
drifting.
down from there.
There's no autos in drifting.
That you couldn't do
There's
it.
no autos in SCCA or Rallycross or any
Yeah.
of that stuff. They're all, manual transmissions.
Yeah.
And the reason
Mostly because you don't have millions of dollars to throw away.
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's mostly about that because some drift cars are incredibly
all right.
expensive.
So all right, let's
it's
talk
because
about.
it's about control.
Did you see that drift car?
well, I think
somebody
it's
built a
necessary
Ferrari.
drifting for how you have.
Well,
to
somebody built a
correct.
Ferrari 599 drift car. I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw that. It
I
was
know
a
who
V12.
it is. I know who it is.
It's what, a twin supercharged?
It's twin
V12?
turbocharged.
A twin turbocharged, and it
Uh,
blew up for whatever
it's
reason, or
ridiculous.
caught fire. I don't want to say
Is it
blew up.
because it was Italian?
No, power steering
But
line.
what? But
sprayed
yeah,
up an
but
exhaust fan.
what transmission was he running on that
Manual.
car? That was a manual.
Absolutely.
How did they convert that? Okay.
Well, you can make anything. But the other thing is, if you look at racing,
I
like-
believe he's running a NASCAR box with a custom bell housing and clutch.
Well, if you just
Which
have
is-
money to
but-
throw away.
Well, and that's actually common. in
But
drift
okay,
cars.
so but this is where I was going. The reason I think that you see manuals, other than it aids in car control and drifting, and it allows you to initiate the drift, all this other stuff.
Yeah, just
But
generally.
it's because manuals are incredibly cheap to maintain in a racing element. I mean, 9 out of 10 times when something breaks, it's the clutch.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Or even if it is part of the gearbox, it's hands down cheaper than it is to build. I mean, the cost of a quality PDK or something is thousands and thousands and thousands. I mean, you blow up your GTR transmission because you use launch control 3 times, it's a $20,000 equation.
That's true, but not at, to use your example, the level of professional drifting.
No, but
because those manuals are 20 grand.
But you're talking
each,
about maybe 25 cars at that level
Yeah.
in drifting, right? I mean,
It's a little more,
or
yeah,
even
I get your
GRC.
point.
You get the Global Rallycross and like Tanderfaust and all those guys use. They're a racing transmission.
Yeah.
They're not. But for like the thousands of people that run races and
Like
autocross
grassroots,
and
yeah,
SCCA
yeah.
and all that stuff,
Yeah,
they're all
well,
manual cars.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's-
more enjoyable.
You know,
It might not be as fast.
And what's
but-
funny is when it was years before I realized that the NSX was available in an auto, and I was like, why?
Yeah.
Like why would
Why would that even-
And what's funny is all the JDM versions of it, a lot of the JDM cars are auto because they wanted the cool car look, but you can't open that car up.
So-
There's not places to do it.
Yeah.
This whole manual debate, it's funny, it's happening in a very different way in Europe. And I've talked to people from Europe about this. And we have this sort of desire as Americans to just rebel against whatever is the
Some
status
convention, yeah.
is the status quo.
We
And
don't
right,
like
right
Fight
now,
technology to
yeah, and right now that is, automatics. They're just everywhere. Only, I think it's 97.5% of all cars sold today are automatic. And in Britain, let's use Britain for an example, manuals, they're dying too, but
every rental car. That
yeah,
was
every
there,
rental. So
diesel rental.
yeah,
Anywhere in the UK.
yeah,
Every
so you can tell, and you grow up, you get a 1 liter piece of junk car,
Yeah.
and it has 60 horsepower, 70 if
It's
you're
27
if you're
years.
lucky. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're lucky, you have a 1.2. Oh, and those are all stick shift,
Yeah.
and you drive that from the time you're 16 till whenever. When you work hard in Europe, it's all about why would I want to drive manual? I've just earned money. I want to drive the fast, fancy car. Like, I don't want, like, that's for what poor people do when they can't afford cars. So I just bought an M3. Why the heck would I want it to be manual?
Are you saying Europe or Germany? Because Germany are
No, this
totally
is
different.
This is the UK. This is a lot of European countries where you drive a stick shift not because it's fun, but because it's the only thing you can afford and it's the only way to make a 1 liter Vauxhall Corsa work.
Well, I think the reason we brought up Germany is because they had like a very specifically
even to get a driver's license.
Yeah,
their perspective on driving
is very different. Yeah.
And that's
so that statement I think applies everywhere except for Germany, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Germany might be an exclusion in Europe, but through most of Europe, the youth are driving
it's
manual
for
cars.
kids. Manual for kids.
Yeah, but even for kids. But even my mom had a stick shift car when she was in college. She had a Nissan Sentra. Since she has never owned another manual car. That was her fun time in college, in the UK, it is not uncommon for your family minivan or hatchback or whatever to be a manual.
Yeah.
Mom drives a manual. Dad drives a manual because they are both blue collar, they earn. So imagine that, that you're however years old and your family owns a Ford, Focus hatchback as your family car. In America, 99 times out of 100, that family is going to have an automatic Focus.
Oh, for sure.
But I would say maybe 99 times out of 100 in the UK, the family Focus is a manual.
Yeah, but
and it's because they just didn't want to spend the extra money. It's a cultural thing. They'll just drive
in America. I think the debate is clearly defined between the UGG caveman must-have manual car, not real if auto mindset, which leads you to the whole type of car, like muscle cars and stuff that and a lot of muscle cars are auto, granted, but
a lot of them are very good.
But you want to see that stuff, and then you have that whole guys like us, kind of like if the car was designed around that right manual, it should have a manual in it.
It was optimized.
I don't think you should change things. I mean, I have no problem with LaFerrari and all that stuff, with the way they're going in P1 and all that. Because like you said, they're designed with that in mind.
Right.
So when you're taking a car, well, even the GTR in its own defense, it was designed to have that transition from day one.
Yeah.
They didn't go, oh, well, let's get rid of the stick shift.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't saying they screwed up on that. I was just saying I was hoping it would be
But what's funny is, I think, Renaissance kind of state of mind, we go for those things that cling to our past. We learn how to manual. So, that's why cars with manuals, like Jared's always talking about values and stuff of cars, and he's always really on point with, this car's going to be worth more money, and he's always right.
Yeah.
And the reason is because you read the American mind, we're consistently crazy. It's like...
So the E60 M5, when it was first being announced by BMW Europe,
was only going to have
exactly. And BMW USA said that car won't sell here without a manual. And they're like, what? No.
Yeah.
And they were like,
the BMW club of North America.
They forced BMW Europe.
We were the only market that got it, and I've never once heard a European. I remember, I think I was having a conversation with somebody from England, and I was like, oh yeah, the E60 M5, I'd buy one of those with a manual, and he's like, those came as a manual here? Why would you want that? It was like, it was so funny.
I guess the point in closing is, if you like manuals, you should get the car you want, but if you like a manual, you're probably of the mindset you want something more visceral. You want an experience where you're in control.
it's experience.
You feel more connected if everything is doing something. You got that extra pedal. Both feet are doing something. Both hands are doing something. You're involved with the driving experience. Mm-hmm. If you like paddle shift and that's the way it is, then get that. But the thing is, if you don't, if you think manuals are going to last, you're on the losing team.
Yeah, they're not.
They're gone. Get them now. If the cars exist, get them now.
Yeah.
Because it's a great investment. Because just look at what NSX prices are doing or Ferrari prices are doing with manuals. I mean, you look at an auto, it's worth half what an NSX with a manual is worth.
Go online.
And it's cheaper to just put a manual in it.
I'm going to tell the people listening, go online and look at a Ferrari 612 Scaglietti. Not one of my favorite Ferraris. In
Not
fact,
one of
my
anybody's
not one of anybody.
I love the
So
Scaglietti.
you can get a Scaglietti at the cheapest, maybe around $89,000 to $100,000 with the automatic. If you find one of the manual ones, and I've only ever seen 2 for sale, both of which were over $300,000.
Comparable mileage.
So with comparable mileage,
Yeah.
So
insane.
at the end, if you had to pick a manual transmission car that right now that you just really want to have that car with a manual.
A car that does not come with a manual that we would like.
Oh,
to
a modern
have.
car.
Well, no. The car that has a manual,
Oh,
like
that
an
has
older
a
car that has
manual.
a manual, like that. But you probably wouldn't buy the version of it with like a newer version. Like I would never have a new NSX, and I don't know.
Well, the new one.
There's-
Okay, so the new one.
And I know
a car
there's-
that used to come as a manual, but does. All right, so I have a perfect example.
Yeah.
I would pick the 997.1 911 Turbo. It's the last 911 Turbo to come with a manual transmission. You can no longer get a manual turbo. I just think that would be such a phenomenal car. 500 horsepower with a manual transmission. That's like the perfect point in time car for me.
You know, it's funny, and he's gonna freak when I say this, but like I wouldn't own the new NSX. Period. I don't
And you love NSXs.
Yeah, well, I love NSXs. I know there are 5 people out there that like the new NSX, and I don't mean to disappoint those 5 people.
I don't know any of them.
Sorry,
either.
But they probably bought it and they're sorry and they don't want to talk about their mistake. But you know what would probably be a car that I'd buy, and I'd buy a Maranello. I'd get
A 550,
like a 550 Maranello.
or if you could, God
Or
forbid, find a
575
575
manual.
manual, they're very hard to
I
find.
mean, they're just it's
why
such a
550 is
beautiful
easier to
it's such
get.
a beautiful touring car, and to have that gated shifter and gated shifters.
So sexy.
I always say for car people, there's people that have driven a gated shifter, and there's people that haven't driven a gated shifter, and there's a line because it's granted
So
the car
precise.
that you're wrapped in may not be the
man.
best thing in the
Yeah,
world.
people always ask me for my investment advice with cars. Just get anything that has a gated manual.
Yeah.
And
Doesn't matter what it
it doesn't
is.
even matter what it
Like,
is. If it has a gated manual in it, it's going to be worth money.
I've been lucky enough to see a few Miras in my life.
Oof.
Okay, now seeing a Mira in real life is like a pilgrimage for car people.
Mm.
Okay, but they're horrible cars. I mean, when they go, the faster you go, they run out of gas. The front end gets light. The car tries to kill you. I mean, when they're not catching fire or overheating or doing,
What,
or
like a car falling
out of
doesn't
them,
try to kill you?
or what? Yeah. So I mean, but it's still a visceral experience, and that's
Yeah.
what draws people to it. Unfortunately, as the prices go up, like what you're saying,
It becomes
The
a point where it's
enthusiasts-
not worth. Is
feasible. It's
a
unfeasible for
manual
enthusiasts to own.
612 worth 3
No,
automatic
no,
ones?
no.
It's
But it's
absolutely it
taken.
can't be. It's
What
not possible.
sucks is not only are manuals being taken away from a whole generation that's not having an opportunity to experience that driving experience. Not saying you don't go out and buy an older car just to feel that experience, but the cars that have it that are probably awesome to drive are pricing themselves out of the budget that anyone will ever see it. I mean, you're going, you have. I don't know if anybody saw this thing where the guys at Royalty, these guys I'm friends with in Vegas, Royalty, it's an exotic car rental company, and they did an oil change on a Veyron.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's like a
it's like a
$20,000 oil change,
$20,000
but you got to take half the car apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, that car is like one of the first over-the-top cars with an auto.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and again, I don't think that
Or
car
like
would have
McLaren
been
F1s.
I don't know. That's an interesting one. I actually think that car
Yeah,
could have worked as a
that car
manual.
could have worked as a
Yeah.
manual. I think
Yeah.
that would have been one of the
Because of the
few-
power band, like I think it could work.
That car to me is
all-wheel drive. It would have been
Oh.
able to put it down
it's,
too.
it's
so.
up there in that group of cars that were just a design, proof of design.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're Bugatti. We can build this $250 car. You know,
Yeah.
250 mile an hour car.
Yeah, mile an hour.
And we can do this. We're not going to make a damn penny on any of them.
We're gonna lose money.
Right, we're going to lose money.
Yeah.
I always wonder where
So
Bugatti
it's-
makes the money.
It was a
Volkswagen
technical.
makes the money.
It was a
Bugatti
technical
makes
exercise.
And then you look at cars like the LFA, like we talked about earlier. That was another car like that. They didn't make any money.
Yeah.
So it's just to say, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, this is something I haven't even, it hasn't been discussed, and I'm only bringing it up to try and be fair and objective. But some manufacturers have actually said recently that they would have offered certain cars, really nice cars, like really high power cars, in a manual, but they couldn't find a manual transmission supplier that could supply one for a reasonable price that could handle the power the engine was made.
That's what they're
And
saying.
I'm like, I don't know if
And
I
I
buy
don't.
that, but
All right, so they're saying that about the new Supra, and the new Supra,
really?
but the new Supra has like 300 and whatever horsepower. And
That's easy. What are you talking
I
about?
call bull on that.
Yeah,
That's
I
impossible. Like that's so silly.
No. That's a good point. That's a good point because
there are if Dodge can put 707 horsepower
that's
but a
completely
manual
true.
transmission,
No, you're right
then
because
anybody can put any amount of power and torque through a manual transmission.
you're right because E30s like with E30 being
Yeah.
with even like a moderate sized turbo in a tune makes 600 wheel horse on a stock
But-
transmission.
but-
not upgraded in any way.
But you have to be all right. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. You have to be able to sell it with a manufacturer warranty, with the fact that it's not gonna die after 50,000 miles.
Drive it. But
Yeah.
I guess the point is, if you can afford to buy what you want to buy, that this isn't a problem. But go out and buy the car you want to buy.
Yeah.
If you want a manual transmission, get it. If
that's all that'll do for
if
you.
you've never touched a manual transmission in your life, it's like Disney World for car people. Go do it. Go try it once.
Well, interestingly, I actually have come to the realization that for a daily driver, I would prefer an automatic because a manual to me has now become only
Because
fun.
we're getting old.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it could be that, but it's because to me a manual is only fun where you can enjoy it. And in most daily driving situations, when you think about what are you doing, you're sitting in traffic. You don't have the opportunity to enjoy it.
Unless you're driving a slow car, like a Fiesta ST, or a BRZ, or a Miata, where even little spurts of flat out in that car is all. That's why I say Miata is always the answer. That's what it's. That's what Miata stands for.
But, all right, let's wrap it up.
All right.
And, check out Jared on his unnamed company that we're not going to mention again.
Yep, you can follow me on Instagram at CarBuzzJared.
And Jason does Das Euro blog for us at Car Show Tracker. So
Yes.
talk to you guys soon.
Thanks.